The nurse asked me 3 times if there was someone she could call. The first time, I said my mother. The second time, I said my father. The third time, after both calls went to voicemail, I closed my eyes and said, "Try my grandmother." That was how I learned the difference between being related to someone and being loved by them. I was 29 years old, lying under fluorescent emergency room lights with a fever so high the ceiling tiles seemed to breathe. My abdomen felt like something alive was clawing its way out of me. Every sound came from very far away. The wheels of a gurney, the soft squeak of rubber shoes, the beeping machine beside my bed, my own breath coming in shallow little pulls because deeper ones hurt too much. A surgeon with kind eyes and tired shoulders stood near the foot of the bed and explained that my appendix had ruptured. Ruptured. The words sounded dramatic, like something that happened in medical shows right before commercials. I stared at him, waiting for my mind to translate it into ordinary language. It did, eventually. Poison leaking inside me, emergency surgery, now. "Do you understand?" he asked. I nodded, though I am not sure I did. I understood pain. I understood fear. I understood that I had driven myself to urgent care that morning because I did not want to be a bother, then been sent by ambulance to St. Agnes Medical Center while a paramedic told me to keep talking so he could monitor my consciousness. I understood that I had texted my mother from the ambulance with trembling fingers. "Mom, please call me. Hospital. Emergency," then another. "Appendix. Surgery. I'm scared." Then I had called her, no answer. I called my father, no answer. I called my sister Elise, no answer. The nurse, a woman named Maribel with silver hair pinned at the back of her head, took my phone from my shaking hand and said, "Honey, let me help." She called again, mother, father, sister, no answer. She left messages in a calm professional voice that made the situation sound less terrifying than it was. "This is Maribel from St. Agnes Medical Center calling for Clara Reeves. Clara is being prepared for emergency surgery. Please call us back as soon as possible." Prepared for emergency surgery. I had never felt smaller than I did hearing my own life summarized to voicemail. Then Maribel asked if there was anyone else. I gave her my grandmother's number. Grandma Ruth answered on the second ring. I could not hear her words at first, only the sound of Maribel's voice softening. "Nurses know. They know when the right person is picked up. Yes, ma'am, she's conscious. She's frightened, but she's stable enough for surgery." "Yes, I'll tell her. Yes, I promise." Maribel leaned close to my ear. "Your grandma says she loves you. She is on her way." I began to cry then, not because I was in pain, not because I might die. I cried because someone was coming. Grandma Ruth was 78, 5 feet tall, and had a spine made of church bells and steel. She lived 40 minutes away in the old brick house my grandfather had built before I was born. She did not drive at night anymore unless absolutely necessary, and she had once scolded me for putting her in an emergency contact form because, as she put it, "Your parents are alive and should be useful for something." But that afternoon she came. I learned later that she called her neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, and told him, "Get your keys. My granddaughter needs me." She arrived at the hospital while I was already in pre-op. They had put a cap over my hair. My hands were cold. I remember the anesthesiologist telling me to think of somewhere peaceful. Then Grandma Ruth appeared beside me. She was wearing her lavender church cardigan over a house dress and sneakers with the laces tied crookedly. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce. "Clara Jean," she said. "Everyone else called me Clara. Only Grandma called me Clara Jean. I'm here." I wanted to say many things, but I was crying too hard. She took my hand carefully around the IV. "Don't you dare apologize," she said, because she knew me. "I called Mom," I whispered. "I know, and Dad, I know." They didn't answer. Something passed across her face. Not surprise, that hurt. Anger, yes. Disappointment, no, disappointment requires hope to have existed first. "You look at me," she said. "You are not alone. You hear me? You are not alone." The surgical team started to move me. Grandma squeezed my fingers. "I will be right here when you wake up." She was. My parents were not. When I opened my eyes after surgery, the world came back in pieces. Dry mouth, heavy limbs, bright pain, a blanket tucked under my chin. Grandma Ruth sat in a chair beside the bed, her head tilted forward as if she had dozed mid-prayer. Her purse sat on her lap. One hand rested near mine, close enough that I could reach it without lifting my arm. "Grandma," I rasped. She woke instantly. "There you are. Did they come?" I did not need to say who. Grandma looked toward the window. Morning light edged the blinds. "No, baby, what time is it?" "Almost 7. 7 in the morning, yes." I had been in surgery, then recovery, then admitted overnight. My parents had had more than enough time to see the missed calls. To call the hospital. To call Grandma. To call me, they had not. My phone lay on the bedside table. Grandma had charged it. I reached for it with slow, clumsy fingers. There were notifications. Not from Mom, not from Dad, from Elise. A photo. My sister's golden retriever Biscuit sat in the middle of my parents' backyard wearing a blue birthday hat. Behind him hung a banner that read, "Happy 3rd Birthday Biscuit." There were balloons tied to patio chairs, a dog-shaped cake on the table, and my father crouched beside the dog grinning like he had just witnessed a miracle. My mother stood behind him holding a tray of cupcakes. Elise, golden hair curled perfectly, kissed Biscuit's head. The caption said, "Best day with the best boy, family always shows up for who matters. Family always shows up for who matters." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Grandma took the phone gently from my hand. "When was that posted?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "Yesterday evening, during my surgery, while I was under anesthesia, while infection was being cleaned from inside my body, while a nurse was telling my voicemails that I needed emergency care, my parents had been in the backyard singing happy birthday to a dog. I wish I could say that was the moment I stopped loving them. It was not. Love does not die as dramatically as people think. It limps, it makes excuses, it whispers, maybe they didn't know, maybe their phones were inside, maybe there was a reason. It bargains with facts because facts are cruel. So I waited. I waited all morning. At 10:13, my mother called. Grandma was in the bathroom. I answered before I could lose my nerve. "Mom, oh Clara," she said, and immediately I heard irritation under the concern. "You scared us half to death." That sentence landed strangely, considering she had not been scared enough to come. "I had emergency surgery. Yes, your grandmother finally got through to us this morning. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I looked at the IV in my arm. "I called you from the ambulance." "Well, we were busy. It is amazing how one small word can open a canyon." "Elise had Biscuit's party," Mom continued, as if this explained everything. "You know how much planning went into that. There were guests, Clara. We couldn't just leave in the middle." I waited for her to hear herself. She did not. "Biscuit's party," I repeated. "Don't say it like that. It wasn't just about the dog. Elise has been under so much stress lately, and this meant a lot to her. I had a tube in my arm, stitches in my abdomen, infection in my bloodstream. But Elise was stressed. Mom, I could have died." She sighed, not gasped, not sobbed, sighed. "Don't be dramatic. You're fine now." There are sentences that should come with warning signs. This one rearranged something permanent inside me. "You're fine now," as if survival erased abandonment, as if the outcome excused the choice. My voice became very quiet. "You chose a dog birthday party over my emergency surgery." "Oh, for heaven's sake, Clara, we did not choose. We didn't know how serious it was. The hospital called. We saw that later." I texted. "Your father had his phone on silent. Mine was in my purse. Elise, she was hosting. Grandma came." A pause. Then Mom said, "Your grandmother loves a crisis." I hung up. When Grandma came back from the bathroom, she saw my face and did not ask what happened. She sat down, took my hand, and said, "There it is. What, the day you stop explaining pain to people committed to misunderstanding it?" I did not know then that Grandma Ruth had already begun making changes. To understand why the trust became a war, you need to understand my family's religion. It was not Christianity, though we went to church on Christmas and Easter. It was Elise. Elise was my younger sister by 4 years, and from the day she was born, the sun adjusted its schedule around her. She was not evil as a child. That would be too simple. She was pretty, delicate, easily overwhelmed, and excellent at crying with witnesses. I was sturdy, practical, and apparently born with the expression of someone who could manage. When Elise refused to eat vegetables, Mom made her buttered noodles. When I refused, I was told not to be difficult. When Elise forgot homework, Dad drove it to school. When I forgot a permission slip once in 4th grade, he said consequences built character. When Elise cried because she did not make cheerleading, the whole house went quiet for 2 days. When I won a state science prize, Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey. Can you help Elise with her poster board?" The family story was that Clara was independent and Elise was sensitive. Independent is a dangerous label for a child. It teaches adults they may neglect you and call it praise. Grandma Ruth never accepted that story. She was my father's mother, which meant she had a front row seat to the way he surrendered all judgment when Mom and Elise performed helplessness. Grandma loved both of us, but she saw clearly. At my 8th birthday party, Elise threw a tantrum because my cake had chocolate frosting and she wanted strawberry. Mom asked if we could just scrape some off for her. Grandma said, "It is Clara's birthday. Elise can eat cake or eat nothing." I remember that because it may have been the first time an adult defended a boundary around my joy. When I was 12, Elise broke my violin bow because she was angry I had practice instead of helping her pick an outfit. Mom said accidents happen. Grandma drove me to the music shop herself and made Elise pay from her allowance for 6 months. When I was 16 and accepted into a summer engineering program, Dad said they could not afford the travel costs because Elise needed new competition dance costumes. Grandma wrote the check. She handed it to me in a white envelope and said, "Do not shrink to make room for someone else's spotlight." I tried not to. But shrinking becomes a habit when you are punished for taking up space. By adulthood, the family roles were carved deep. I became a biomedical equipment technician at a hospital network, the kind of job no one understands until something breaks and patients need it fixed. I rented a modest apartment, paid my bills, changed my own oil until my knees protested, and visited Grandma every Wednesday with groceries. Elise became an influencer, then a boutique owner, then a wellness consultant, then, most successfully, Biscuit's mother. Biscuit was a perfectly nice dog. That is important. None of this was Biscuit's fault. He was a golden retriever with cheerful eyes and the moral complexity of a loaf of bread. If you threw a tennis ball, he loved you. If you dropped a sandwich, he loved you more. My parents adored him. They called him their granddog. They had professional portraits made. They bought him monogrammed blankets, organic treats, and a stroller he absolutely did not need. Mom once skipped my promotion dinner because Biscuit had separation anxiety after grooming. When I objected, Dad said, "Don't be jealous of a dog, Clara." Jealous. That was the family's favorite dismissal. If I pointed out unfairness, I was jealous. If I asked why Elise's rent was paid while I worked overtime, I was jealous. If I wondered why my birthday dinner became a celebration of Elise's new business idea, I was jealous. If I wanted my emergency surgery treated as more urgent than a dog party, I was dramatic and jealous. Grandma saw what they did. After the surgery, she stayed with me for 2 weeks. Technically, I should have been the one recovering, but I spent half my energy trying to stop Grandma from doing too much. She arrived every morning with soup, medicine schedules, and opinions. She changed my sheets, organized my discharge papers, argued with the pharmacy, and sat beside me through feverish nights when complications kept me weak. My mother visited once. She came on day 6 wearing a floral blouse and the strained expression of someone fulfilling an obligation. She brought a grocery store bouquet with the discount sticker still on the plastic. "Elise wanted to come," she said, placing the flowers on the counter, but Biscuit had a digestive issue. Grandma, sitting at my kitchen table, looked up from peeling an orange. "Did he require surgery?" Mom stiffened. There's no need for sarcasm. There was no need for absence either, but here we are. I closed my eyes. Morphine had made me too tired for war. Mom turned to me. "Clara, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" I laughed. It hurt my stitches. "What would you like me to do? Get up?" Mom's face tightened. "I came to check on you." "Thank you. You could sound more grateful." Grandma set down the orange peel. "Margaret, leave," Mom gasped. "Excuse me? You heard me. This is my daughter's apartment, and she is recovering from emergency surgery after you ignored hospital calls. If you came to demand gratitude, leave." Mom looked at me, waiting for rescue. For once, I gave none. She left after 7 minutes. Dad came 2 days later with a card signed by both of them. The front had a cartoon cat in a hospital gown. Inside, Mom had written, "Feel better soon." Dad had added, "Don't scare us like that again." I stared at that sentence for a long time. "Don't scare us," as if my ruptured appendix had inconvenienced their emotional schedule. Dad stood near the door jingling his keys. "You doing okay?" "I'm healing." "Good, good." He looked around the apartment, avoiding Grandma, who was folding laundry with the air of a queen tolerating peasants. "Elise feels terrible," he said. "About not coming, well, about the tension." I waited. He continued, "She thinks you're mad at her." "I am," he sighed. There it was again, the family exhale of disappointment whenever I failed to be convenient. Clara, she didn't know. She got the same messages. She was busy hosting, with a dog party. His jaw tightened. "You keep saying that like it was silly." "It was silly compared to emergency surgery. You always do this." "What? Rank suffering. Make everything a competition." Grandma slammed a folded towel onto the table so hard both of us jumped. "No," she said. "Your daughter nearly died, and you are defending balloons for a retriever." Dad turned red. "Mother, stay out of this." "I will not. This is between me and Clara." "Then speak to Clara like a father." He left soon after. The card went into the trash. Grandma's health began failing that winter. At first, she hid it. People like Grandma do not announce weakness. They disguise it as impatience. She stopped walking all the way through the farmer's market and claimed the vendors had become boring. She let me carry the grocery bags and said young people needed exercise. She sat more often. Her hands trembled when she poured tea. By January, doctors found the cancer, pancreatic, advanced. The word incurable entered the room like smoke. I was with her when the oncologist explained treatment options. Grandma listened politely, asked practical questions, then said, "I am not spending my remaining time vomiting into a bucket for an extra month of being pitied." The doctor began gently discussing palliative care. I cried in the parking lot afterward. Grandma sat beside me in the passenger seat and waited until I finished. Clara Jean, she said, do not waste my dying by pretending I am not. That is a horrible sentence. It is an efficient one. I laughed through tears. We made plans, not the inheritance kind at first. The living kind. She wanted to eat peach cobbler from Miller's Diner, even though the doctor said sugar was not ideal. She wanted to sort through Grandpa's tools and donate them to the vocational school. She wanted her funeral hymns written down because she did not trust my father not to choose something bland. She wanted no slideshow, no open casket, and absolutely no releasing of balloons because, as she said, litter is not grief. I spent every free hour with her. My parents visited occasionally, usually when guilt or appearances demanded it. Elise came twice, both times with Biscuit in a little sweater because she said he cheered Grandma up. He did, actually. Grandma liked Biscuit better than most people. She fed him bits of toast and told him he had the only honest face in the family. Elise posted photos of those visits online, cherishing every moment with our queen. Grandma saw one post and snorted. She stayed 19 minutes, I said. The caption needed 20. Grandma laughed until she coughed. In March, she asked me to drive her to her attorney. His name was David Rosen, and his office smelled like leather chairs and lemon polish. I assumed she was updating medical directives. Instead, she told me to wait in the lobby. You don't need me, not for this. What is this, my business? That was Grandma Ruth. Loving, fierce, and occasionally infuriating, she spent 2 hours inside. When she came out, she looked tired but satisfied. Take me for ice cream, she said. It's 10:30 in the morning. Then there will be no line. We got butter pecan. She ate half, gave me the rest, and watched traffic through the windshield. Clara Jean, she said, when I'm gone, they will try to confuse you with guilt. My throat closed. Grandma, listen. Guilt is useful when it tells you you have done wrong. It is poison when others use it to punish you for refusing wrong. I looked at her. What did you do in there? I made sure my wishes were written by someone who bills enough per hour to frighten fools. That was all she said. Grandma died on May 6th at 4:18 in the morning. I was holding her hand. The room was quiet except for the oxygen machine and the soft hum of the refrigerator down the hall. She had been sleeping more and speaking less, but near the end she opened her eyes and looked at me with sudden clarity. You came, she whispered. I bent close. Always. Her fingers moved weakly against mine. That is why I did not understand then. Then she was gone. Grief does not arrive all at once. Some parts come immediately. The wail, the shaking, the impossible stillness of a hand that held yours moments before. Other parts come later, hidden inside ordinary tasks, canceling prescriptions, returning medical equipment, finding her reading glasses beside a book she would never finish. My parents arrived 3 hours after she died. Mom wore black already, which annoyed me irrationally. It made her look prepared for the performance. Dad hugged me stiffly. Elise came with sunglasses, though it was cloudy, and Biscuit on a leash. He sniffed my shoes and leaned against my leg. I patted his head because, again, none of this was his fault. Mom looked around Grandma's living room. Where are her rings? Not how are you, not thank you for being with her. Where are her rings? I stared at her. On her hand. Well, we should secure valuables before people start coming in and out. Grandma had been dead 3 hours. I said, David Rosen has instructions. Mom's expression changed. Instructions? Her attorney. Dad frowned. Why would Rosen be involved already? Because Grandma wanted him involved. Elise sank dramatically onto the sofa. Can we not talk about money right now? Then she looked at me as if I had introduced the subject. The funeral was 4 days later. I followed Grandma's instructions exactly. No open casket, no slideshow. Hymns she chose, peach roses, not lilies. A short service because she had written, people trapped in pews become resentful. Let them eat ham afterward. Mom tried to change the flowers. Lilies are more traditional, she said. Grandma hated lilies. She never told me that. She told me that became the pattern. Mom wanted a memory table. Grandma had forbidden it. Dad wanted a long eulogy. Grandma had chosen Pastor Glenn and limited him to 12 minutes. Elise wanted Biscuit to walk down the aisle wearing a black bow tie because Grandma shared a special bond with him. I said no. Elise cried. Mom said, would it really hurt? I said, Grandma wrote no animals in church unless they are better behaved than relatives. Biscuit is better behaved, but still no. Dad accused me of being controlling. I showed him Grandma's handwritten funeral instructions. He became very quiet after that. At the reception, people praised my devotion. You were such a good granddaughter. Ruth always said you were her rock. She trusted you completely. Each compliment landed like a blessing and a burden. Across the room, Mom heard them too. I watched her face tighten each time someone mentioned how much time I had spent with Grandma. She did not like public evidence of private absence. Elise made a speech near the dessert table without being asked. Grandma taught us all about love, she said, dabbing her eyes while someone recorded on a phone. She loved family more than anything. I know she would want us united. Grandma would have wanted Elise to sit down. The reading of the will happened 1 week later in David Rosen's conference room. I did not want to go. That may sound strange considering what happened after. But I was exhausted. Money felt vulgar beside fresh grief. I would have given every dollar Grandma had to hear her call me Clara Jean one more time. My parents wanted to go very much. So did Elise. They arrived dressed as if for court. Mom wore pearls, Dad wore a navy suit. Elise wore cream cashmere and carried a designer tote large enough to hold a small child. Biscuit was not present, which I considered a sign that someone had warned her. David Rosen was a neat, silver-haired man with a voice like folded linen. He greeted us, expressed condolences, and began. Grandma's estate was larger than any of us knew. That was the first shock. My grandfather had invested early in a medical supply company that later merged, split, and grew into something enormous. Grandma lived modestly because she liked modesty, not because she lacked money. Between investments, property, retirement accounts, and insurance, the estate was substantial. Mom sat straighter. Dad's hand tightened on his knee. Elise stopped looking bored. David read specific bequests first. To her church, funds for roof repairs. To the vocational school, Grandpa's tools and an endowment for trade scholarships. To Mr. Alvarez, her car and $10,000 for never making me feel foolish for needing a ride. To Elise, Grandma left $25,000 and her pearl earrings. Elise smiled faintly, disappointed, but still performing grace. To my parents, Grandma left $1 each. Mom blinked. Dad said, "Excuse me," David continued, unshaken. The $1 bequests were deliberate, included to show they had not been accidentally omitted. Mom's face drained of color. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. Then David turned a page. "To my granddaughter, Clara Jean Reeves, I leave the residue of my estate, including all remaining liquid assets, investment accounts, and proceeds from sale or management of real property, to be held in the Clara Jean Reeves Trust, administered according to the terms set forth herein." My ears rang. David kept reading. The trust assets were estimated at approximately $5 million after taxes, expenses, and distributions. $5 million. The number did not feel real. It was too large to belong in the same room as my grief, my old sedan, my medical bills, my apartment with the noisy refrigerator. Elise sat forward. "That can't be right," Mom said. "There must be conditions." David looked at her. "There are." For one wild second, relief crossed Mom's face. She thought conditions meant sharing. David read them. The trust was for my benefit alone. I would become co-trustee at 30, then sole trustee at 35, with David's firm managing distributions until then. Funds could be used for housing, medical needs, education, career development, charitable giving, and general welfare. No distributions could be compelled for the benefit of my parents, Elise's dependents, pets, businesses, debts, lifestyle expenses, legal claims, or public relations emergencies. David paused slightly at pets. Grandma had put biscuit in legal language. I almost laughed and cried at once. Mom stood. "This is obscene." David folded his hands. "Mrs. Reeves, please sit." She was manipulated. Dad said, "Margaret." "No, I will not sit here while my mother-in-law punishes us from the grave." David removed a sealed letter from the folder. Mrs. Donnelly anticipated that response. Grandma's married name. Ruth Donnelly. He opened the letter. It was addressed to all of us. "My dear family, if this letter is being read, then I am dead, which means at least one of you is already behaving badly." That was my grandmother. Even from beyond she came armed. David read on. She wrote that her estate plan had been made freely while she was of sound mind, with independent counsel and medical confirmation of capacity. She wrote that she had chosen to provide generously for me because I had shown up when showing up was difficult, boring, frightening, and inconvenient. She wrote that love was not measured in social media captions, funeral speeches, or claims of entitlement. Then came the part that changed the temperature in the room. She wrote, "On the day Clara was taken into emergency surgery, her parents and sister ignored repeated calls from the hospital because they were attending a birthday party for Elise's dog. I know this because I was the one who came. I sat with Clara before surgery. I sat with her after. I watched her ask whether her parents had arrived, and I watched the answer break her heart. That day clarified what years had suggested." Mom whispered. "No," David continued. "I do not leave Clara my estate because she is perfect. I leave it because she has been treated as optional by people who now expect to be treated as inevitable." My money will not reward that. Elise began crying, not quietly. This is cruel, she said. She loved me. David looked at her over his glasses. The letter continues. To Elise, I loved you. Love is not the same as approval. You have been overindulged until gratitude became unfamiliar to you. $25,000 is enough to know I remembered you, and not enough to let you avoid becoming an adult. Elise made a sound like she had been slapped. To my son Robert and his wife Margaret, you taught Clara to accept crumbs and called her greedy when she noticed the loaf. You may contest this if you choose. David has been instructed and funded to defend my wishes. If you spend your energy fighting Clara, you will only prove I judged correctly. Dad covered his mouth. Mom sat slowly. The room was silent except for Elise's crying. Then David handed me a second envelope. This one is for you privately. I took it, but I could not open it. Not there. Not with all of them staring at me like I had stolen something. Mom turned to me. Clara, she said, and her voice changed. Softer, trembling, dangerous in its sudden tenderness. You know this isn't what family does. You know Grandma was angry. She was sick. She didn't mean to divide us. I looked at David. Is the meeting over? It can be. Dad leaned forward. Honey, please. We need to talk, honey. I could count on one hand the number of times he had called me that since childhood. We can talk later, I said. Elise wiped her cheeks. I can't believe you're just taking it. I didn't ask for it, but you'll keep it. I stood, my legs unsteady. Yes, the word surprised even me. Yes, not maybe, not we'll see. Not let me make everyone comfortable with the money left to me because comfort is the tax my family always charged for peace. Yes, I would keep what Grandma gave me. Mom's eyes hardened. This will destroy us. I looked at her for a long moment. No, Mom, this is just the first time destruction is costing you something. Then I walked out with Grandma's letter in my hand. The begging began that night. At first, it came disguised as concern. Mom called 7 times. I let voicemail take each one. Her first message was tearful. Clara, sweetheart, I know today was overwhelming. Please call me. I'm worried about you being alone with all this. Her second was practical. We need to schedule a family meeting. Money like this requires planning, and your father understands investments better than you do. Her third was wounded. I cannot believe you would punish us for one misunderstanding. One misunderstanding. Emergency surgery had become a scheduling mishap. Dad texted, "We love you. Let's not let lawyers come between family." Then your mother is devastated. Then Grandma was not herself at the end. Then call me before this gets ugly. Elise sent a voice memo. I should not have listened, but grief makes you pick at wounds. I hope you're happy, she sobbed. You always wanted to prove Grandma loved you more. Well, congratulations, you win. Biscuit is literally shaking because everyone is upset, so I hope $5 million is worth traumatizing an innocent animal. I saved that one, not because I enjoyed it, because I was learning the value of records. David Rosen called the next morning. I assume they have contacted you. Yes, do not discuss trust assets with them. Do not agree to family meetings without counsel. Do not sign anything. Do not send money to keep peace. I wasn't planning to. He was quiet for a moment. Good, but people raised to appease often relapse under pressure. I wanted to resent that. Instead, I wrote it down. People raised to appease often relapse under pressure. For 2 weeks, my family tried every door. The guilt door. Mom said, "We gave you life." I said, "Grandma saved it." The fairness door. Dad said, "Elise is your sister. She deserves security too." I said, "She got what Grandma chose." The emergency door. Elise said her boutique debt had become urgent. Apparently, she had taken out loans to relaunch her brand as luxury pet lifestyle products. Biscuit's birthday party had doubled as a content shoot. The balloon arch, custom cake, photographer, rented grass wall, and dog treat bar had cost more than my rent. I thought sponsorships would cover it, she said. They didn't. They will eventually, but I need bridge funding. From me, from the trust. Not you personally. That distinction was so absurd I almost admired it. I said no, she cried until I hung up. Then came the family reputation door. Mom said people would talk if I did not help. I said people were already talking. They think you're greedy, she snapped. Which people? She hesitated. Elise's followers. I laughed. I could not help it. Mom hung up on me. The public campaign started soon after. Elise posted a video from her car, eyes red, Biscuit panting in the passenger seat. She did not name me, but she did not need to. She spoke about inheritance trauma, narcissistic relatives, and the pain of being cut out by someone you trusted. She said her family had been blindsided by a last-minute will change during a loved one's illness. She said some people exploit caregiving to manipulate vulnerable elders. Caregiving. Exploit. I watched the video sitting at my kitchen table. My hands went cold. Within hours, comments appeared. That's elder abuse. Contest it. Some people are vultures. Poor Biscuit looks so stressed. Poor Biscuit. I called David. He watched the video and sighed. She is careful. No names, no direct accusations. What can I do? For now, nothing publicly. Document everything. I hate that answer. It is often the correct one. Then Mom escalated. She gave an interview to a local online magazine about family fractures after elder illness. She used her full name. She mentioned that her mother-in-law had died after a rapid cancer decline. She said the estate had been unexpectedly redirected to one grandchild who had controlled access during the final months. Controlled access. I had driven Grandma to appointments, changed her sheets, cleaned vomit from her nightgowns, slept on her sofa, and held her while she died. Controlled access. The article included a photograph from Biscuit's birthday party. There they were, Mom, Dad, Elise, the dog, the balloons. The image that had broken me became part of their victimhood branding. I did not sleep that night. At 3 a.m, I opened Grandma's private letter for the first time. My Clara Jean, if you are reading this, I have done the one thing I could still do after years of watching them ask you to survive on leftovers. I have given you choice, not money. Choice. Money is only paper people agree to respect. Choice is the real inheritance. You will be tempted to buy peace. Do not. Peace purchased from people who feel entitled to your sacrifice is only a rental. The price will rise. Your parents will say they did their best. Perhaps they did. Some people's best is still harmful. Elise will say you are jealous. You are not. You are awake. Use this money to build a life where love does not require auditioning. Help others if you wish, but never as proof that you are good. You do not need to prove goodness to people who benefited from your doubt. I have loved you from the first moment I saw your serious little face. You looked at the world like you suspected it of sloppy bookkeeping. You were right. Keep records. Keep boundaries. Keep your humor. And Clara Jean, if they bring up that dog party, remind them I did not forget it either. Grandma, I pressed the letter to my chest and cried until sunrise. Then I made coffee, opened my laptop, and began keeping records. Every voicemail, every text, every post, every article, every message from strangers calling me a thief, abuser, manipulator, greedy witch, and one particularly creative person who said I had stolen from Biscuit's future. Biscuit had a future fund now. Apparently, David's firm sent a cease and desist letter after Mom's second interview. That letter was a masterpiece of controlled threat. It stated that public implications of elder abuse, undue influence, or isolation were false and defamatory. It noted that Mrs. Donnelly had executed her estate plan with independent counsel and capacity documentation. It demanded preservation of communications related to the public statements. It warned that further defamatory claims could result in legal action. Mom called me immediately after receiving it. How dare you send lawyers after your own mother? You accused me publicly of manipulating a dying woman. I never used your name. You used every detail except my social security number. You are being vindictive. No, I am being documented. Dad got on the line. Clara, stop this. Your mother is having panic attacks. Then she should stop giving interviews. She's grieving. So am I. You have $5 million to comfort you. There it was, the truth beneath the father voice. I said, Grandma's money does not make your abandonment less real, he snapped. We missed some calls during a party. We did not abandon you. A hospital told you I was going into emergency surgery. We came the next day. Mom stayed 7 minutes. You kept score, yes. The answer came out before I could soften it. Yes, Dad, I kept score because I was always told I imagined the game. He went silent. Then he said very coldly, I don't know who you are anymore. I looked at Grandma's letter on the table. I do. I hung up. The trust did not become accessible overnight. That frustrated my family and protected me. David's firm handled probate, asset transfers, tax planning, and legal administration. I received a modest initial distribution for medical debt, housing stability, and counseling, all within the terms Grandma established. Counseling was David's suggestion. Your grandmother included general welfare, he said. Healing from your family qualifies. My therapist's name was Dr. Mira Shah. On our first session, I tried to summarize my life efficiently and ended up crying over a birthday cake for a dog. She did not laugh. She said, "The dog party is not the wound, it is the evidence." That sentence helped me more than I expected. Evidence. Not pettiness, not jealousy. Evidence. We worked on boundaries. At first, mine were less like walls and more like nervous caution tape. My family had trained me to defend every no with an essay. Dr. Shah taught me that no could be a complete sentence, but she also admitted complete sentences are difficult when your nervous system expects punishment. So I practiced. "Mom, we need help with the mortgage until probate settles." Me, "No, Mom, that is not an answer." Me, "It is my answer." Dad, "Elise may lose her business." Me, "I'm sorry to hear that. Dad, you could prevent it." Me, "Not funding Elise's business." Elise, Biscuit's insurance premium is due and you know Grandma loved him. Me, "I'm not paying Biscuit's insurance." Elise, "You're heartless." Me, "No, I became very fond of no, my family became less fond of me." In August, Elise's boutique collapsed. I know because she posted a tearful announcement blaming lack of family support during a vulnerable entrepreneurial season. She sold remaining inventory at a discount. Luxury dog bandanas, ceramic treat jars, motivational sweatshirts for dog moms, and something called intention-infused leash charms. Mom called the closure devastating. Grandma would have called it math. In September, Dad retired earlier than planned. Not because he was ready, but because he had borrowed against his retirement to help Elise twice and co-signed business debt he had not disclosed to Mom. Their mortgage was strained. Credit cards were high. The financial foundation they expected Grandma's estate to repair had cracks everywhere. That was when the begging became desperate. They requested a meeting through David. I almost refused. David said, "You can. But hearing them in a controlled environment may reduce direct harassment." Dr. Shah said, "Go only if your goal is clarity, not rescue." I went. The meeting took place in David's office with him present. My parents sat on one side of the table. Elise sat beside them, eyes swollen, Biscuit absent again. I sat across with a glass of water and Grandma's private letter folded in my purse like a talisman. Mom looked smaller than I remembered. Anger had kept her inflated for months. Desperation shrank her. Dad began. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." I nodded. He opened a folder. Spreadsheets, debt summaries, mortgage statements, Elise's business loans, credit card balances, medical bills for Mom's anxiety treatment, a family emergency arranged in columns. "We are not asking for all of it," he said. "How much are you asking for?" He swallowed. 1.2 million. The room went very still. I looked at David. His face did not change, which was impressive. 1.2 million, I repeated. Mom rushed in. That would clear the mortgage, settle Elise's debts, replenish retirement, and allow everyone to breathe. Everyone. Elise leaned forward. "You would still have millions." I looked at her. "You had $25,000. That barely covered legal consultations." "Legal consultations for what?" She looked away. David answered mildly, "For exploring a contest, I assume." Elise flushed. Dad said, "We were hurt. People do irrational things when hurt." "You accused me of elder abuse," Mom said. "We never used those words legally." "No, just publicly." She clasped her hands. "Clara, please, we made mistakes." I waited. The word apology hovered near the table but did not land. Mom continued, "But families help each other. Your grandmother would not want us ruined." I almost smiled. They still tried to recruit Grandma after death, even though she had left written instructions refusing the job. "Grandma knew your finances?" I asked. Dad looked uncomfortable. "She knew we had pressures. She knew about Elise's loans." No one answered. "She knew," I said. Mom's eyes filled. "You sound so cold." I turned to David. "May I read something?" He nodded. I took out Grandma's private letter. Not all of it. Some words were mine alone, but I read the part about buying peace. "Peace purchased from people who feel entitled to your sacrifice is only a rental. The price will rise." Mom began crying. Elise whispered, "That's manipulative." I looked at her. "No, it's accurate." Dad's voice hardened. "So that's it, you'll watch your family struggle." I felt the old reflex rise. Explain, soften, rescue, apologize for having what they wanted. Then I remembered waking from surgery and asking if they came. I remembered Mom saying, "Don't be dramatic. You're fine now." I remembered Dad saying, "Don't scare us like that again." I remembered Elise saying Biscuit was traumatized by my inheritance. I watched my family celebrate while I was in surgery. I said, "We have all watched things." Mom covered her face. Dad said nothing. Elise glared at me. "It was one party." "No," I said. "It was one party that revealed a lifetime." The meeting ended without money. But I did offer one thing. "I will pay for 6 months of family therapy," I said, "directly to a licensed therapist. For the 4 of us, if the therapist agrees it is appropriate. No cash, no debt payments, no business rescue, therapy." Mom looked insulted. Dad looked tired. Elise said, "So you think we're crazy?" I think we're broken, they did not accept. Not then. The next week, they filed a formal petition challenging the trust. David had expected it. Grandma had funded the defense. Still, seeing the legal document with my name listed as respondent made my stomach twist. They alleged undue influence, lack of capacity, suspicious circumstances, and improper isolation. They requested discovery into my communications with Grandma, her medical records, and the drafting of the trust. It was ugly. It was also, according to David, weak. Litigation can be weak and painful at the same time, he warned. He was right. For months, my grief became paperwork. I sat for a deposition in a conference room where my parents' attorney asked whether I had ever discussed inheritance with Grandma. No, whether I knew she was wealthy. No, whether I resented my sister. I resented being mistreated. He asked if I had intentionally prevented my parents from visiting Grandma. No, he produced visitor logs from Grandma's hospice agency. My visits were frequent, theirs were not. He seemed to realize too late that his own evidence proved my presence, not their exclusion. Then he asked about the surgery. Isn't it true that your parents were unaware of the seriousness of your condition until after the procedure? I looked at him, then at my parents sitting beside their counsel. No, how can you be certain? Because the hospital called and left messages stating I was being prepared for emergency surgery. Do you have those messages? David slid a transcript across the table. We do. My mother's face changed. Their attorney read the transcript silently. Then David produced my texts, call logs, the nurse's note documenting family contact attempts, and Grandma's phone record showing the hospital called her after my parents failed to respond. Documentation has a sound. It is quiet, but it can knock the breath from a liar. The attorney moved on. A month later, David deposed my mother. I was not required to attend, but I read the transcript. He asked where she was when the hospital called. At my daughter Elisa's house. For what purpose? A family gathering. What kind of gathering? A birthday celebration. For whom? A pause in the transcript. For Elisa's dog, even in black and white, it was devastating. He asked when she listened to the voicemail. She claimed the next morning. Then he showed a phone record indicating the voicemail had been played at 7:42 p.m. the night before while I was in surgery. Another pause. She said she did not remember. He asked why she did not call back. She said she thought Grandma had it handled. There it was. Grandma had it handled. Not my daughter needs me. Not the hospital called. Grandma had it handled. Dad's deposition was worse in a different way. He admitted he saw my text during the party but thought, Clara tends to panic. He admitted he told Mom they should call after cake. He admitted they forgot until later. He admitted that when Grandma called from the hospital after midnight, he let it go to voicemail because he could not handle Ruth judging him. I read that sentence 6 times. He could not handle being judged. I had handled surgery without parents. By January, their case was collapsing. The medical capacity evidence was clear. Grandma's attorney had documented independent meetings. Her oncologist confirmed she was cognitively intact when estate changes were executed. Neighbors, hospice workers, Pastor Glenn and Mr. Alvarez all gave statements that Grandma spoke openly about disappointment in her family and gratitude for me long before any legal documents changed. Then Elise made the mistake that ended everything. She posted another video. This one was not careful. She had been drinking, her hair was messy, her mascara smudged, and Biscuit slept behind her on a sofa. She said my name. Clara Reeves stole my grandmother's estate by playing nurse and keeping everyone else away, she said. And now she's hiding behind lawyers while my parents might lose their house. She always hated that Grandma loved me too. This is what jealous sisters do. The video was deleted within an hour. We already had it. David filed counterclaims for defamation and abusive process, then sent Elisa's attorney a copy with a settlement demand, withdraw the trust challenge with prejudice, issue a written retraction, cease public accusations, and each party bears their own fees except as otherwise ordered. If not, we would pursue damages. For the first time, my family's attorney advised retreat. The settlement conference happened in February. Mom would not look at me. Dad looked like he had aged 10 years. Elise looked furious and frightened. Their attorney did most of the talking. They agreed to withdraw. Elise issued a written statement posted publicly saying previous comments were made in grief and frustration, that there was no finding of wrongdoing by me, and that Grandma's estate plan had been legally executed. It was not warm, it was enough. Then came the part no one expected. Dad asked to speak. His attorney tried to stop him. Dad shook his head. I need to say this. He turned to me. I listened to the voicemail, he said. Mom closed her eyes. I listened during the party. I told myself Ruth would go. I told myself you were probably exaggerating. I told myself a lot of things because I did not want to face leaving. And then when you lived, I used that to excuse not going. My chest hurt. He continued, voice breaking. I failed you, not legally, not in some complicated way. I failed you as your father. The room blurred. Mom whispered, Robert. He ignored her. You don't owe us money. You don't owe us rescue. I'm sorry. For months, I had imagined those words. In my imagination, they freed me. In reality, they hurt, because a real apology does not erase the harm. It confirms that the harm was real. I nodded once. Thank you for saying it. Mom did not apologize. Elise did not apologize, but Dad did. That became the narrow bridge between us. After the legal case ended, life did not transform into instant happiness. Stories like this often jump from victory to sunshine, but healing is mostly admin work. Closing accounts, paying medical bills, learning investment basics, meeting trustees, going to therapy, sleeping badly less often, blocking strangers, not checking Elise's page, failing at not checking Elise's page, trying again. The trust changed my life in practical ways before emotional ones. I paid off my surgery debt. I moved into a small townhouse with a garden and a security system. I cut my hospital hours to part-time and enrolled in a graduate program for clinical engineering management. I created a scholarship through Grandma's vocational school endowment for students training in medical equipment repair. I named it the Ruth Donnelly Practical Mercy Scholarship because Grandma believed mercy should come with instructions and a socket wrench. I kept my old sedan for another year because sudden wealth made me suspicious of shiny things. I also adopted a dog. Not a golden retriever. That would have been too on the nose. I adopted a senior mutt named Mabel with cloudy eyes, bad hips, and a deep mistrust of decorative pillows. She was 9 years old, mostly beagle, partly mystery, and entirely unimpressed by drama. When Elise found out, she posted, "Funny how some people copy your whole personality after destroying your life." I did not respond. Mabel sneezed on my phone. Dad started therapy alone. He told me in an email, not a call. He said he was learning about avoidance, favoritism, and the difference between peacekeeping and cowardice. He did not ask for anything. That mattered. For a long time, I answered politely but briefly. Then one Saturday, he asked if he could take me to lunch. I said yes, partly because Dr. Shaw said boundaries are not the same as permanent exile unless I choose exile. Lunch was awkward. We talked about neutral things, my program, his garden, Mabel's habit of stealing socks. Then he said, I drove past St. Agnes last week and had to pull over. I looked at him. He stared at his coffee. I keep thinking about you there calling us, and me deciding Kate could happen first. I said nothing. He wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed. I don't expect you to comfort me. Good, I said. He nodded. Then unexpectedly we both laughed. Not because it was funny, but because truth without performance can sometimes release pressure. Mom refused therapy. She decided the whole thing was Grandma's fault, then David's fault, then Elise's lawyer's fault, then Stress's fault. She never again publicly accused me, but she perfected the private martyr tone. On my birthday, she sent a card that said, "We hope you are enjoying the life you chose." I put it in a folder labeled Records. Elise moved to Florida with Biscuit and a man who sold luxury outdoor kitchens. She reinvented herself as a coastal lifestyle creator and stopped mentioning me when a defamation warning remained pinned in her legal memory. Occasionally, she sent Dad messages asking for money. He forwarded none to me, but he admitted once that saying no to her felt like withdrawal from a drug. That is probably accurate, I said. He smiled sadly. Your grandmother would have said it harsher. She would have said, then sweat. He laughed, and for a moment I could see the man he might have been if he had learned courage earlier. On the first anniversary of Grandma's death, I drove to the cemetery alone. Her grave sat beneath a maple tree beside Grandpa's. The stone was simple because she had chosen it. Ruth Elaine Donnelly, beloved wife, grandmother, and teller of necessary truths. I brought peach roses. I sat in the grass, though it was damp. A lot happened, I told her. Wind moved through the leaves. I told her about the trust, about the lawsuit, about Dad's apology, about Mom's card, about Elise's Florida reinvention, about Mabel's snoring, about school, about the scholarship, about how angry I still felt sometimes, and how guilt still knocked even when I refused to open the door. Then I told her the thing I had only recently understood. You didn't give me revenge, I said. You gave me proof. Proof that I had been loved correctly by someone. Proof that showing up mattered. proof that inheritance could be more than property. It could be a final witness statement. When I stood to leave, I noticed another bouquet already there. White daisies, no card. Dad, probably. Grandma had liked daisies. Mom always brought lilies. I did not move them. That evening, I hosted dinner at my townhouse. Not for my parents, not for Elise, for Mr. Alvarez, Pastor Glenn, Maribel the nurse who had found me through hospital channels after receiving my thank you letter, and 2 friends from work who had quietly become family while I was busy chasing the old version. We ate pot roast from Grandma's recipe, though mine was not as good. Mabel slept under the table collecting dropped carrots. Someone spilled wine. Nobody made it my fault. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody called me dramatic. After dessert, Maribel raised her glass. "To the people who answer," she said. I thought I would cry, but I did not. I smiled. People sometimes ask whether I gave my parents any money in the end. The answer is no. That surprises people. They expect inheritance stories to end with a generous compromise, as if generosity is only real when directed at those who harmed you. But I have learned that mercy without wisdom is just a door left unlocked. I did not pay their mortgage. I did not settle Elise's debts. I did not reimburse legal fees they spent trying to prove I manipulated my dying grandmother. I did not buy my way back into a family system that required my silence as admission price. I did eventually accept Dad's apology as a beginning. Not a full restoration, a beginning. We speak twice a month now. He asks about my life and, most importantly, listens to the answers. He has not asked for money since the settlement. That is why he is still in my life. Mom sends holiday texts signed Mom and Dad, even though Dad texts separately. I respond with, "Thank you." It is not warm. It is honest. Elise sent one message after Biscuit needed surgery. It said, "I know we don't talk, but Biscuit is sick and Grandma loved him. Please." I sat with that message for a long time. Then I called the veterinary hospital directly and paid $500 toward Biscuit's care anonymously through their hardship fund. Not because Elise asked, and not because I owed her, but because Biscuit was innocent and Grandma would have approved of kindness with boundaries. To Elise I replied, "I hope Biscuit recovers. I'm not sending you money." She wrote back something I deleted unread. Biscuit recovered. So did I, though not in the way people mean when they say recovered. Recovery does not return you to who you were before. It introduces you to who survived. Before, I was the daughter who explained. Now I am the woman who documents. Before, I chased love through usefulness. Now I let love prove itself through presence. Before, I thought being chosen by family was something I had to earn. Now I remember a 78-year-old woman in crooked sneakers arriving at a hospital because I called. The $5 million changed my circumstances. Grandma's belief changed my standards. My parents skipped my emergency surgery to throw my sister's dog a birthday party. That sentence still sounds absurd, almost comic, until you remember I was the one on the operating table. They made their choice when they thought there would be no cost. Grandma made hers when she knew exactly what it was worth. And when they came begging for the trust she left me, I finally understood what she had been teaching me all along. You do not owe your inheritance to the people who treated your survival like an inconvenience. You do not owe rescue to those who abandoned you and called the aftermath unfair. You do not owe your future to the family that only remembered you mattered when your name appeared beside a dollar sign. Grandma left me $5 million. But the real fortune was the courage to say no.